Okay, welcome to part 2 of the video. If you haven't watched part 1 first, I recommend you do so because this video will build off of some of the ideas I explored in the first video, but I will also expand on them and I will actually discuss new topics, and I'm going to do my best to answer all the questions you guys had after watching the first video. So one of the questions was actually what to do when kids are not behaving. Now, in this situation, I have kids that are great. They love the shoot, and I talked about in the first video how it's really important to just make the day fun. If you're shooting an engagement session, make them feel like they're on a date. If you're shooting a family portrait session, make it like just a normal family outing. Don't make this feel like work.
Move your body closer so you can lean up. That's good, that's good. That looks great. Okay.
Put your hands in your thumb in your pockets.
It's a like more headshotty. Chin down a tiny bit.
So Emily on my YouTube commented that, asked me what to do when kids are not behaving. Most of the time parents feel the kids are not cooperating and get frustrated. My go-to now is to show them a good photo on the back of the camera just to ease their mind and prove yes, it is going good. But every time I show someone the back of the camera, something happens. When I get the photo on the big screen, it doesn't look as good, or I forget the photo I showed them. Oh, then they ask about it and it becomes a headache. So any better method is appreciated. So Emily, you actually explored a few interesting ideas, and they are some that I have encountered or was warned about when I first started as a photographer. I second shot, which was a really good way to have sort of a bread and butter system of shooting that I could then build off of, throw out the stuff I didn't like, add stuff I did like. And one of the things that was recommended to me by the lead photographer I worked with was to never show an image on the back of the camera. The reason being is you don't know what the primary photographer is going to decide to keep and not keep. However, that same photographer told me about how showing them is a good way to kind of build excitement, and then when they see the images, that excitement will carry over. Now, you can agree or disagree with that, but from what Emily is saying is that the end result on the computer screen, if I'm understanding correctly, didn't really match the image on the back of the camera, which is an interesting statement. I remember when the 5D Mark III or II came out, coming from the Mark I, is how that same photographer I talked about felt that the screen was so good that it actually was misleading. However, I remember from the 5D Classic, I had the opposite experience where images that just didn't look very good actually looked good on the computer screen. So that is an issue. So those are two reasons or a few reasons why you may or may not want to show them. But I understand the desire to build excitement, to get them engaged, and for them to feel excited about the shoot and satisfying a curiosity. What do these images look like? It can build confidence in you. But I'll also tell you that when you are a confident photographer, which is very hard to fake, sure you can fake it, but when you know what you're doing, it does show. I shot a job a week ago for Kaiser Permanente. They're a regular client of mine, and the woman who is my new contact point because I basically outlasted the person who did the job before, told me, is like, I really felt like your subjects felt really comfortable because it was clear you knew what you were doing. So if you clearly know what you're doing, you are going to minimize that issue where they're kind of like not sure about what the images will look like. So I hope I answered that question. I would try to avoid it overall. Just try to avoid showing them images. Let's get back to the behavior because that's the real issue. Kids not behaving. One thing I really prefer is for the parents to not intervene, especially if I'm only photographing the kids. Often the parents get much more frustrated.
1, 2, 3.
I mean, for me, I don't take anything personal in general. I mean, some things like not like any person I do, but for the most part, when I'm working, I don't take anything personal. I'm detached from it in a good way, and because of that, I'm able to stay very, very calm. However, parents with their own kids, they don't have that detachment. It's more difficult. So in those situations, I actually typically prefer the parents to not get involved. However, it depends on the relationship with between the parents, the kids, or how are these. Sometimes the parents are beneficial. So I hope I answered that question. Let's get back to this video. So in the first part, I did a lot of safe stuff. In this second part of the video, you're going to see this will be pretty safe what I'm doing here, but I'm progressively going to start experimenting a bit more and trying different things. I really like this gazebo, but it doesn't matter if you like something or not. What really matters is the quality of the light when you're looking for classic portraits where you want to make the images as flattering as possible. So we're here in an overcast day. Even if it weren't overcast, it's possible I would get enough shade in this gazebo. If I didn't have enough shade, I could always backlight my subjects. But what I'm going to get here, it's hard to say where the light's coming from by looking at the image, but because I know my orientation, the sun was coming from the right because the right of camera is west. And so we have a pretty even distribution of light, some direction coming from the right. We can kind of see on Dad's shirt how the right side or his back is a bit brighter. That tells me that's where my light is coming from. So what I love about this gazebo is I'm able to get a nice contrast between the white and this beautiful green background. Additionally, what I've noticed here is that we have these little holes and some of them are in the shape of a heart. So I've begun experimenting because I shoot here pretty often with shooting through that heart and getting a heart effect, a heart vignette around my subject. So here you see Dad being silly, getting a reaction out of the kids. Sometimes you can do that. When you're posing multiple people, I often will have them look at each other, which I talked about in the last video, but I'll also have people off camera participate. And what I'll do is I'll say, hey, make them uncomfortable, make them laugh, you know, get a reaction from them. I'll keep it vague and just let them do what they want to do. Here I'm shooting through that heart, and you guys will see the result.
Okay, on 3, 1, 2, 3.
Meanwhile, I'm going to kind of go through my YouTube comments, and I will do my best to answer more questions. So Emily, I think same Emily, I believe, also commented, great video. I was at a discount store and looking at the picture of the child on the wall. The light in the kid's eyes was completely different than that on his face. It was driving me crazy, and I wouldn't stop talking to my husband about it. So I think what you're referring to is when they Photoshop a catch light into the eyes and it doesn't really match the lighting on the face, which doesn't make sense to anyone that understands photography or, you know, lives on planet Earth. You guys have to remember, we are used to certain types of light that feel natural. For example, light typically comes from above. If you light someone from below, it starts to look like when someone's telling a scary story. It doesn't look natural. We're used to light coming from above. So Adrian, this is one of the most underrated channels on YouTube, recently did a photo shoot using your advice about letting them interact more, and the results was so much better. Looking forward to the next video, and I hope you're doing well in these times. Okay, not a question, but a comment. I do really appreciate it. Underrated, I don't know, but I'm proud that I talk about actual photography, and I draw on my own strengths, and I've asked myself, well, what do I know? And I know professional photography. I know how to teach. I'm a teaching artist for the city, and so I lean on those strengths because I also produce content I would want to watch if I were a viewer, and I'm not interested in all the gear reviews videos, you know. So I appreciate the comment. Let's see what else we have. Jody, when you deliver your photos, how do you do that? Hard copies, digital files, or do you have them on a website? Okay. So I'm going to tell you guys how I deliver the photos, which may be different than what you want to do. There is not a correct way to run your business. my way of running my business reflects my personality and my desire for how I would want it to be if I were a consumer of my service. I don't like editing. I don't like a lot of back and forth. I like human connection. I don't like emailing. I don't like any of that stuff. So I love the prospect of shooting. That's the best part for me, and hanging out with kids. Sorry for the shaky video. This is Miles running around with the camera, which I always love because we have a lot of fun every year when we do our shoot. And he gives me some B-roll stuff. I'm going to have to talk to him about keeping that camera steady though, right? So the way I run my business is that I charge a fee I feel is fair. I don't have a time limit. I shoot until I feel I have a great collection of images. I have trust from my clients, so they trust me. But I also get input to make sure they feel like we have a good collection of images based off their own perspective, like did we try different backgrounds, etc. Then I edit and deliver all of the images. I do the best job I can to edit them down, but I don't go crazy. I don't agonize over it as much as I would like to.
Let's go this way. I'll go this way. Okay, Mom. You can see Macy. Oh, Macy, you're going down the stairs.
You have to remember this is a business, and it's not my own personal art project or work, right? And so I can't spend like 3 hours extra to make sure I deliver only the best images ever. I don't want to deliver just 20 images. I shoot for what I feel is a good amount of time, or until I get all the images I feel I really want to make a good collection of work. And that's how I do it. You also have to remember that nowadays I am an event photographer. That is my primary gig. I shoot corporate events. I shoot political events. I shoot a lot fewer portraits and a lot fewer of any other type of work, really. Most of my portrait work will be like grad photos and from past clients that I've had for many, many years. And so I price it how I want to price it. Now, I potentially am leaving money on the table. I acknowledge that, and I'm okay with it. You have to decide what you're going to be okay with. You can try any business model you want. Just make sure it's competitive. If you can, whatever works, okay? So if you go against the grain and you're doing something different, that's fine, as long as it works. So here, I think Miles has the camera. I think I'm doing some test shots, or I'm photographing Macy here. And I'm going to be experimenting with different ways of shooting. Now I am going to try things in light I normally might not want to shoot in, etc. And in the end, I kind of liked the results. I actually really liked some of them. It wasn't what I'm normally doing, but I think if not for your client, for yourself, you need to push your boundaries. You need to try different things. I talk a lot about burnout. Which might not be a problem for you, but if you've done this for a very long time, it could become a problem. And you have to find new ways to challenge yourself, try different things, stay engaged with your craft.
Look at me. You always have a comment.
All right, another question, but it's more of a comment, and I get uncomfortable reading compliments, but Chris says, nice video, Mick. You rock with natural light. Understanding it means everything. Keep shining that light for us with your knowledge and skills in real-life situations. Always keep it authentic, man. Thank you very much, Chris. I think understanding light is absolutely essential. For many, many reasons. You want flattering light. You want to make your subjects look good, but there's so much more to it. Understanding light means you can work quicker. So I use the juggling analogy to talk about shooting. So let's say you know how to juggle 2 balls perfectly, but then someone hands you a 3rd ball. You have to then consciously make that attempt to now juggle 3. And the analogy would apply to photography in the sense that maybe you understand your shutter speed and your aperture, but you're kind of shaky on ISO. And so when you're shooting, you're always tripping up over ISO. Or maybe you understand composition. You understand how to use your camera, but you don't understand light, etc. And so the more things you are able to push to the subconscious through repetition, practice, understanding, etc., you are then able to focus on what really matters, and you're then able to try new things. And when you walk into a room, you know exactly the type of work you can shoot in that room because you understand the light. You just understand it intuitively. It might not be the right word, but what I mean is subconsciously, at a deep level. You walk into the room, you don't have to think anymore. I hope that makes sense.
Something over, and then
It's gone now, huh?
yeah. Look, people are writing stuff. Heart, QVP,
I've talked about different light modifiers on my channel. Understanding light is deeply important, and you don't always need to buy a fancy reflector. If you understand white will reflect, even your white t-shirt will reflect light. I actually prefer to wear white over black when I'm shooting, just because I prefer the catch light that my white shirt potentially can make. I don't always bring a reflector because I know how to find good light, and the reflector is only to enhance it. But I can find a good base coat of light pretty easily in any situation. And then the modifiers are just going to make it even better or satisfy a creative itch, perhaps. So here's an area I normally do not shoot in, and the light is not amazing. And it required a little bit more editing, if I remember correctly. Not a ton, just like to get the light right, to get the color balance correct. So here you see me shooting. Notice I shoot with two eyes. I've talked a lot about that. I shoot with two eyes for a variety of reasons. One, I'm able to connect with my subject better. Two, I'm able to time my action better when I have both eyes open rather than that tunnel vision you get from only having one eye open. It's better when they can see a person rather than just a lens. So here we're just trying things out, we're having fun. I already know I got all of my safe shots, and now I can experiment a bit more in this little bamboo forest.
we're in the bamboo forest.
So another question I got, but it wasn't on this video, but it was on my channel from, I don't know how to pronounce your name, Winfei? Winfei says, "Hi Mick, love your content. I wanted to ask, do you go to college for photography?" So I have to interpret here because I don't think this is English is your first language, and I'm not entirely sure if you're asking me if I went or if in general people have to go, and that's a big topic, and I was thinking about even making a video on that. I did and didn't go to college for photography. I majored in history, but I lived in the darkroom. I took more photography classes than most art students. I took it every quarter, and in some cases, I think I was able to take more classes than actual art students because other classes they needed to meet their requirements conflicted with photography, but my history classes never really did. And so I was always able to take photography, and that was pretty much my life in college. Sad to say. Sad to say I didn't really put as much into my actual degree as I should have, but that's okay. I was passionate about photography. I don't think you need to go to college for photography, especially if you want to do it professionally. If you think about it as a business, and let's say college is going to cost you $30,000, imagine what you could do with a $30,000 marketing budget as a new photographer, or imagine the gear that would buy you. Because by the way, when you graduate college, you're going to be broke and you will not be able to afford any gear, and you're going to have to build, unless you have, parents that can help you out, that kind of thing, you're going to have to build it up very slowly. And on top of that, you have a large college debt. So in that situation, it might not be a good idea. Everything you want to learn or can learn, you can learn without college. That said, if you could, I would recommend in general going to college because it's the college experience. It's a great experience. But I suppose you could say, hey, if you think about just the money you're spending, imagine that $30,000. What if I traveled for a year and enriched my soul and my creative spirit, whatever? So it is complicated. There's no correct answer, but I will say you can learn photography and pursue a career in photography without going to college. I don't regret going to college, but I don't. I didn't learn that much in college, in all honesty. Most of what I learned was self-taught and from working with another photographer when I started out. Mostly self-taught though. And when I started YouTube, when I started, YouTube wasn't as big as it is now, and there wasn't all this information you can learn. Now, of course, you have to be careful on YouTube because a lot of information can be bad. A lot of the biggest YouTubers don't know what they're talking about. As a policy, I don't call anyone out. I won't bring up names, but some of the photographers on YouTube that are have the largest channels don't know what they're talking about.
2020.
Maz, you can film now.
Let's see if there's any other comments. That was about it for the comments, I think.
No?
Yeah. So let's focus on what's going on in front of us.
See any
Still in the bamboo forest. Miles getting shots of my butt. I don't know why. But Macy's got the camera. I didn't know that. So Macy's got the camera now. Usually Miles runs around with my camera. You can see we're just having a lot of fun. Honestly, there's so much to photography other than the technical stuff. It's how you relate to your clients. Are you easy to work with? Do you make things fun? That kind of thing. It matters so much. And anyone can learn the technical stuff. The rest is a bit more difficult because it does come down to your personality. If you're an introvert or you're not good with people, you're shy, those are problems. That can make this type of photography difficult. And you should consider playing to your strengths. And if you're not, you can try to force yourself. You can. And you can improve. But ultimately, there's going to be some people that are better at connecting with people than others. So in my last video, you guys can see how that foam core board has like a metallic side to it. I just added that to it, playing around. I wanted to try it out, just create my own silver reflector, that kind of thing. I did have a better reflector in the car, but that reflector is very large, and I just didn't feel like I needed it. And I think it was buried on in the bottom of my trunk.
What are you doing? If they could stand
So-
on the middle rail.
One thing, I've talked about how I like to do sessions. So this is a special case. I love this family. If a shoot, actually most of our shoots take about 3 hours, I think. My normal shoots do not. I don't need that long to get all the stuff I want. However, with them, I don't put a time. There's really no time limit. I don't work with the time limit, but with them, there's really no time limit. So it gives us opportunity to relax, to have fun. And if you have a time limit, that can be stressful for you, for your clients. And if you're rushing, they will perceive that. If you're not rushing and they know you're charging by the hour, then they're going to feel like they're not getting as many shots as they'd like. Let's talk about this spot we're in now.
Squeeze in a tiny bit
Here's a
closer.
spot I rarely shoot in because usually I don't get great light. I'm just not a big fan of the light that reaches this area.
All right, on 3.
It depends on the time of
1,
day.
2,
But
3.
with the internet, they saw it
on three,
online, and I
smile,
said, yeah, let's
everyone.
try it. I want
1,
to try new things,
2,
and
3.
I want to kind of challenge
stay there, don't
myself. And
move.
at some point, I decided I didn't really like photographing this area, and so I did it. And I ended up sticking with pretty simple kind of like portraits, the formals. Every year we shoot a few formals, but really it's about the kids. It's not really like a full family session. We usually just focus on the kids and then get like a family shot. And then at the end, we always get a shot of me with the kids.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Smile. Okay. Oh, let's see. One more time. I just want to make sure. Okay. On 3, 1, 2, and 3. And one more. One, 2, and 3. Okay, cool. I'm gonna just quickly look here.
I do have another question
One
I
more.
found
And
that I
we'll
wanted
go to
to
a break.
answer.
1,
It was on my video
1,
about
2,
how
3.
to be stealthy as a photographer, and Clay
Alright.
says, just maybe a thought, it would be nice to maybe have some B-roll demonstrations of your movements of holding the camera as such. Great tips, but for visual learners, I think it would be more impactful. And yeah, I would love that, but to properly demonstrate that, I would need to do it at a live event. Which means I have to hire a crew or hire a videographer to follow me around. And I don't make money on YouTube, and I don't have the budget for it. And so what I've been hoping to do is when I do contract out a videographer for a job, I'm going to ask them to shoot more B-roll of me working too, so long as it doesn't take away from the job that they have to do. But yeah, I've thought a lot about this. I really want that type of footage. I want not just POV footage, but I want to show you guys footage of me working so you can really see how I move, how I work. You can watch how I kind of scan a room, etc. Okay, so this is the last location that we shot in. I usually save it for last because unless I
Okay,
bring in
guys,
a
ready?
big reflector, the light isn't going to be very good because I can't find
Alright,
any
1,
natural modifiers. Sure, if it's an overcast
2,
day, it's not as big of an issue.
3. Look here.
But what I ended up doing
Smile.
is waiting toward the end of the day
Happy
and catching
smile.
that kind of, not quite the golden hour, but
Normal
close
smile.
to it. And you can see the warm light
Look at
that
me.
we get in the photos. The video
normal
doesn't
smile,
really do
normal
it
smile.
justice. So again, the light is coming from camera right. It's pretty low in the sky. We're probably an hour before sunset. And I love the way this type of light does look, especially when you shoot wide open. It gets a really beautiful effect.
Alright, guys, ready? 1, 2, 3.
Another thing I would like to get at some point would be a bracket so that I can flip the camera's rotation around so you guys don't have to watch sideways video. Of course, that's not desirable, but I have to be careful when I work. I don't want the work to be compromised, and that's why
Normal
it's very
smile. There we
difficult.
go.
As much as I'd like to film every job or set up cameras so if I don't have someone filming me, I can still get footage of me working. I don't want to take away from the job. Here what I'm doing is I'm framing my subjects using this fallen tree.
Someone wants to sit here?
Creates more of a candid feel. If you haven't watched my video on how to enhance your
Right there,
candid
right there,
portraiture, I would recommend that. It's one of my favorite videos I've made. I don't recall how well it did on
Perfect.
YouTube, but I really enjoyed making that video.
That's really good. Perfect. Stay there. Don't move. No, relax, relax. You look tense. Can you sit a little straighter? Yeah, that's better.
You guys may have noticed I don't talk about settings too
Yeah,
much, and
that's-
I'm happy
that
to answer
works.
questions about that. It's just I don't think settings are that relevant. Yeah, technical photography is relevant, but like I'm not gonna hand you guys magic settings. That's not how it works. Where I'm like, just put your camera in this mode, or use this shutter speed or this aperture. It doesn't work that way. And while I often do shoot wide open, it's not the end all be all to photography. Sometimes you want more depth of field. It really depends on the situation. Now, in a shot like this, it's not really about the location that much. I don't need everything to be in focus to get that rustic vibe out of that fallen tree and the trees in the background. So my focus is Miles striking a pose for us here. He's always been hilarious about how he poses, even when he was like 2. They don't need too much direction from me. I've watched these kids like really grow and their personalities change over the years. Their personalities have really come out lately. Macy was actually really, really shy the first year I photographed her. It was really I felt really bad because there were just more images of Miles, even though I do my best to be fair, but Macy wasn't having it. She just had a grumpy face all day. And I think about a year ago or 2 years ago now, she really came out of her shell. So not always, but typically if I have a good spot, good composition, good lighting, I'll photograph everyone I'm photographing in that spot. Not always, but pretty often I do.
Climb up? Can you go up on top? Do you need help? No,
Notice I cut an angle for these shots in order to allow the composition to kind of draw your eye in or draw your eye out. So by cutting an angle, I can get the tree to kind of lead your eye in or out. Hopefully that makes sense.
You see that part that sticks up? Maybe you can like go over there.
I suppose I could probably rotate the footage and then add like black bars on the side, but I don't know how to do that. And it sounds like more work than time I have. Unfortunately, guys, I am stretched to the limit. I haven't really talked about it yet on my channel, and I will in a future video, but the short version is that, as you guys know, I am a full-time photographer normally. I also teach for the city, and as a city employee, I swore an oath to assist in a disaster, and we've had nothing but them this year. And pretty much I'm just kept busy at least 32 hours a week and sometimes 65 hours a week, helping where needed. So I've helped with the election, I've helped house the homeless, and I work at a COVID test site. And it's very far from me, the test site, and I'm pretty much waking up at 5 a.m. and I'm not getting home till like 6 p.m. maybe, depending on the day. And then I'm still working out. I'm still doing my work related to my actual photography. I'm still planning content, and I've managed, but I'm getting to a point where it's clearly not sustainable, and I'm tired. I'm really tired. I'm not gonna lie to you guys, and that's why I didn't really have much content in the last month and a half, 2 months. I am going to really, really work hard to have a new video for you every week. That said, I can't promise it. And that's not very professional if, you're a YouTuber. Having regular content is important. But I'm not a YouTuber. You guys have to remember, and I know you guys understand, I'm an actual working photographer in normal times, and I'm not a professional YouTuber. That's not how I make my living. Now, if you're a fan of the type of content I do produce, there is a way you guys could help me. Obviously, if you want to support me on Patreon, that's more, I would love that. But if you could send this video or any of my content to a photographer you know starting out, that's the best way to help me, I think. You know, this channel is not about gaining like 3 million subscribers. It's about helping people that really want to learn, especially professional photography. And unfortunately, even though this is a content you would think they would want, and they probably do want, it gets buried in the YouTube algorithm. It's not going to get the same kind of traffic that gear review videos will get. And so sending it to someone you know is probably the best way to help me.
One more time. Oh.
All right, so let's wind it down. So just the last thing I want to talk about is future content. I do plan on recording a video talking about how I'm making everything work with my busy schedule. And I don't like making content that's just entertainment or content that's just about me. I like making content that can be helpful to people. And so the reason I want to make this video is I want to talk about how I'm staying productive when I'm swamped, when I have no time, how I'm making it work. And I have a lot of productivity tools that I've been experimenting with, refining, etc., in order to make this work. Again, I don't think it's very sustainable, and I'm hoping that at some point more and more photography work will come in, and then I will reduce the amount of disaster service work I'm doing. But for now, unfortunately, I really need to do this type of work. It's very rewarding, and it pays me. And so that's where I've been, guys. That's kind of like where I'm at. And I think it would be helpful to hear my perspective and how I'm getting by.
Wow.
I want to make this channel not just about the work side of being a professional photographer. I can't even talk. I'm getting so tired. I want to make this channel not just about the work side of being a professional photographer, but also about the lifestyle, what it really means as a lifestyle, because that's something you're not really going to learn until you do it. So I hope I can help you with that. All right, guys, I'll let the video roll in case you want to watch a little bit more of me working. I'll share more photos. Until then, until the next video, thank you guys so much for watching. If you made it all the way to the end, let me know. It's a pretty long video. I really appreciate all of you. Thank you.
Ready?